The reviewer found that from the material reviewed, the assessment in terms of the perpetrator's vulnerabilities was problematic, and this ultimately led to questionable decision-making and suboptimal handling of the case during the time he was engaged with Prevent and Channel. It identified that the vulnerability assessment framework was not followed, with the perpetrator's symptoms being prioritised over addressing the underlying causes of his vulnerabilities. The reviewer ultimately found that while Prevent policy and guidance at the time was mostly followed, the case was exited from Prevent too quickly. The reviewer identified 6 issues, namely that the support given did not tackle all of the vulnerabilities identified, record keeping was problematic and the rationale for certain decisions was not explicit, responsibilities between police and the local authority were blurred, the tool used for identifying an individual's vulnerability to radicalisation was outdated, the school that made the referral to Prevent should have been involved in discussions to help determine risk and appropriate support, and the tasking of the intervention provider was problematic, with a miscommunication leading to only 1 session being provided instead of 2. The reviewer then examined how far changes in the Prevent programme since 2016 had addressed these issues. The reviewer recognised the significant changes that had been made to Prevent since the perpetrator was managed, in particular the introduction of the statutory Prevent and Channel duties under the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act of 2015. The reviewer concluded that over the intervening period, there have been considerable changes to policy and guidance for both the police and the wider Prevent arena, including Channel. Whilst a number of the issues in the perpetrator's case would most likely not be repeated today, there were still a number of areas which could be considered as requiring further work in order to mitigate against future failures. The reviewer made 4 recommendations for actions to further strengthen Prevent. These were to improve the referral process, strengthen the initial intelligence assessment process, update the tool used to identify vulnerability to being drawn into terrorism, and to not reduce data retention periods. Since the report, the Home Office and Counter-Terrorism Policing have fully implemented all 4 recommendations. First, a single national referral form was launched to encourage a consistent approach to referrals, building this into new training packages and mandating its use via statutory guidance. Second, training has been delivered to police staff to strengthen the initial intelligence check stage, ensuring their understanding of Prevent is robust. Third, a new Prevent assessment framework was rolled out in September of 2024. This replaces the tools previously used to assess all referrals and cases in the Prevent system. And fourth, data retention periods were fully reviewed in 2023, and a joint decision was taken by the Home Office and Counter-Terrorism Policing to maintain retention review periods at 6 years or 6 years after the 12-month review for Channel cases. In addition to the publication of the Prevent Learning Review, we recognise the significant concerns that remain over the way in which Prevent dealt with the perpetrator, as well as the need to ensure that the recommendations it suggested for improving the scheme have been properly implemented. Last week, I set out to the House a series of new reforms instituted by the government to strengthen the Prevent programme, recognising the vital work done by officers across the country to keep people safe. That included the creation of a new independent Prevent Commissioner. And I can today inform the House that the Home Secretary has asked the Prevent Commissioner to review the Prevent programme's interactions with the perpetrator in this case and ensure the implementation of all relevant recommendations. We will ensure that the Amess family have the support they need to engage with the Prevent Commissioner in this work so that they can have confidence that it will get to the truth about any failings in the scheme. Madam Deputy Speaker, 2 further important issues have been raised which are relevant to this case: local policing and members' security. On local policing, concerns have been raised by the Amess family about the way in which Essex Police handled this case. A complaint has been made and referred back to the local force by the IOPC for consideration. That process must be allowed to follow its course. However, I can inform the House that the Home Secretary has written to the Chief Constable and the Police and Crime Commissioner of Essex Police, asking them to set out how the investigation will be conducted and to be kept updated as the investigation progresses. Secondly, on members' security, this is something that the Home Secretary and I care deeply about, and I know that it is a matter to which Mr. Speaker attaches the utmost importance, as will all members right across this House. A review of security measures for MPs commissioned under the previous government has concluded, and all the recommendations have been implemented. We must ensure that the learnings from this case have been properly implemented. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Speaker for his continued leadership on these matters. The Speakers' Conference is specifically considering what reforms are necessary to further improve MPs' security and safety. This is another important step. And the Leader of the House, the Home Secretary and myself look forward to working closely with the Speaker and with all members to ensure that the facts of the appalling murder of Sir David are properly considered as part of the Speakers' Conference work, and that the Parliamentary Security Department implements the recommendations it made following the review it conducted into the aftermath of Sir David's death. I'm also grateful to previous Home Secretaries and Security Ministers for their efforts in this area. Our democracy is precious, and this government will defend it against any and all threats, not least through the Defending Democracy Task Force, where we are mounting a whole-of-government response to combat these threats, including ensuring that elected representatives can perform their duties safely and without fear. Madam Deputy Speaker, to conclude, I want to pay tribute once more to Sir David. He was a giant of this House, and we miss him dearly. In all that he did, Sir David epitomised public service at its best. It is beyond a tragedy that we can no longer seek his advice or rely on his wisdom. We can, though, follow his example and devote ourselves every day to the task of building a better and safer Britain. That is our shared challenge, Madam Deputy Speaker, and under this government, nothing will matter more. I commend this statement to the House.
Yeah.